attend the screening because he's in hospital right now.
Has he seen the film?
He has seen the film about half a year ago, and also with audience, and he just took his intravenous needles out of his hand and left the baffled medical doctors behind, jumped into a car and came to the screening. And he apparently liked the film very much. He said by far the best film that was ever made on him. But I have to point out, you have seen some footage in the film by a colleague of mine, Vitaly Vansky. And for example, when he meets his old aunt, and this is heartbreakingly beautiful. And this, I must say, I'm very grateful that I was allowed to use this footage from created by Vitaly Vansky. It is simply filmmaking at its very best.
You also used some other footage from a Vansky film as well. You used some other footage from a Vansky film as well.
Yes, when he's at the cemetery. But I wanted to specially point it out at its very best moment, so that it stays better in the memory of the audience. So I owe him a lot.
One of the things I know you've said before is that you're not a journalist, you're a poet. And with this, I think you really captured a facet of Gorbachev as a man, and in terms of him being on the verge of the possible and the impossible. I'm curious to know what you think of it, about if his future that you had said, sort of the tragedy of him, if the future of the Soviet Union, or even connecting with Europe, if that is something that would have been possible.
I think it is still possible, but of course, to answer your first hint is, yes, I tried to not only portray him and his time, I wanted to look at some moments, attempted at least to look into his soul. And at the end, when I'm repeating the poem by Lermontov, it is something like, almost like catching a glimpse of the soul of his country, of Russia. A very deep, wonderful soul. So that was one thing that I attempted, and of course the film hints, and you as an audience understood and captured it. There were wonderful times where the unthinkable became possible and were doable. The most improbable characters, Ronald Reagan and Gorbachev, meet, and they trigger momentous changes in world history. And I do believe that the demonization of Russia is a very major mistake, not only of the media, but of politics. And it would be good if somehow we would depart from this entering into a phase of an almost new version of the Cold War. Of course, today, it's when you look at the media, for example, today I think it is not that important what the facts are telling us. It's more who owns the narrative. And in a way, the narrative is completely occupied by demonizing Russia. And I do not believe that Russia really poses a danger for the West. They are not going to attack. They're not going to attack America. And dangers are enough out there in the world, and these dangerous situations in countries and schemes are raising their heads, and we can see them emerging. The real danger is not Russia, in my personal opinion.
And just given also your history, which I know you were speaking a bit before about you spending time in Russia and your with this film. I'm curious to know maybe your perceptions of what maybe their narrative is of the US or the West.
I think there's a certain amount of disappointment that, for example, as strange as it may sound, Vladimir Putin had seriously contemplated and asked for having Russia admitted as member of NATO, of all things. It has not been reported widely, but of course it is an undoable idea, because NATO would not defend Russia's border in the Far East against a potential war with China, for example. So, but I think Russia also needs an omnipresent, almost omnipresent feeling of encroachment and existentially threatened by the expansion of NATO. And it was promised to Gorbachev, and you can see the documents today, NATO would not expand. When Germany reunited, East Germany would not be weaponized, it would not be an offensive form of expansionism, of military expansionism. And not only the leadership in Russia right now feels threatened, it is the population itself. A majority of Russians feel existentially threatened by the expansion of NATO. And if you allow me a metaphorical scenario, if, let's say, NATO had dissolved and the Warsaw Pact had continued with a promise not to expand, and all of a sudden the Warsaw Pact would somehow incorporate Canada, and Russian troops, 200,000 Russian troops, conducting military maneuvers together with the Canadians at the North American border, it would freak out America. And at the same time, let's say a few aircraft carriers stationed near Tijuana, some 20, 30, 40,000 Russian troops in Jamaica smoking weed with the guys there. And so I think Russia would feel, America would feel existentially threatened. And you've seen it during the Cuba crisis. That was an existential threat, and America responded.
I'm also curious too, I mean, there's some hints in this film about this, but maybe even the relationship between Gorbachev and maybe how they view each other.
Well, he did not want